Many of us will have heard of serviced accommodation or Airbnb, but today's blog is going to take an in-depth look into it and whether it could be a strategy for you to get involved in. Traditional buy-to-let properties are a familiar concept for many of us, where you rent out an apartment or house to a tenant on a long-term basis. Serviced accommodation is a little different from this, as you rent your apartment or house on a short-term basis. In effect, the property rent out is effectively a small hotel, as guests can stay anywhere from 1 to 2 nights to months at a time. Serviced accommodation has become a topic of debate in recent years, with lots of media attention surrounding Airbnb. Airbnb is a business that advertises serviced accommodation, but has become the go-to company when looking for holiday accommodation. Airbnb isn't the only company that advertises serviced accommodation. Booking.com, Hotels.com, and Home and Away are companies that all advertise serviced accommodation online, but we often hear Airbnb being discussed. Serviced accommodation has many benefits for individuals travelling for work or pleasure. Benefits for the end user are a home-from-home setting, hotel standard services but a more homely feel than a hotel room. There's more space to enjoy, for example you've got bedrooms, living rooms, etc. It's more convenient as guests can prepare food, as often properties have kitchen facilities. And often apartments will have laundry services like a washing machine and a dryer. Serviced accommodation is becoming ever more popular for business travellers as it gives them more for their money than staying in a hotel room. Companies are tending to favour serviced accommodation for their workers, as it's often cheaper to stay in serviced accommodation than hotels, mainly because of the length of stay is weeks to months. Business users are more likely to do their own laundry, cook their own meals, and generally expense less when they're staying in serviced accommodation in comparison to staying in hotel rooms. You're probably wondering, what's in it for me? Well, with serviced accommodation becoming more popular, the price charged per night has been creeping up. When you compare the income generated through a typical buy-to-let where your property is rented out to one tenant long-term for say £800 a month, in comparison to renting out your property per night for £90 a night, you can see why many investors are leaning towards serviced accommodation. It doesn't take many nights of renting out your property per night to overtake the traditional buy-to-let rent. So why doesn't every landlord switch to serviced accommodation? There are some considerations when looking into serviced accommodation. As we mentioned earlier in the article, you're technically running a mini hotel from your rental property. I spent some time with Claire Halliday of Refreshing Scotland, an Airbnb management company, to discuss some of the challenges of running serviced accommodation. Bookings. You'll need to advertise your property on multiple different websites to ensure it can be booked by a range of guests, from holiday goers to corporate business clients. You also need to create a listing and upload photos, and reply to any questions or queries you receive through the various platforms. Changeovers. You're running your rental property as a mini hotel, therefore you'll need to get the property changed over between guests. Bed linen will need changed, the whole place will need cleaned from top to toe, and you'll need to replace any condiments, take the bins out, and check for damage or repairs. Check-ins. Guests will arrive when it's convenient for them, therefore you need to make arrangements to let them into the property or use a key safe. Remember, no matter how simple you make instructions, there will always be the odd guest who struggles to get into your property. Imagine a late night call from a guest who has been for dinner and had a glass of wine or two, asking you to help them to enter the property at midnight, or possibly later. Furnishing. While you could technically buy a property and put in any old furniture, the price you can charge per night for guests to stay will be higher if the property is kitted out with higher quality furniture. From Claire's years of experience in the industry, she recommends picking a few statement pieces of furniture to give your property a luxurious feel and make your property stand out from other similar properties, which will attract attention to your property and likely increase the number of bookings. High quality fixtures and fittings will withstand the test of time too, so spending money on quality furnishings up front is a double win. Location. We've all heard of location, location, location. It's something that all potential investors or current landlords must consider when researching a property to buy for serviced accommodation. If a property you're looking into purchase or currently own is located in a rural location, it can be more complicated to manage as serviced accommodation. One particular sticking point for managing properties in rural areas is availability of laundry services for all the bed linen you're going to need if your property turns over every night. As you can see, there's a lot to organise with serviced accommodation. For many landlords, this would be too big of a time commitment. It's pretty much the same thing as running a bed and breakfast, but without cooking the breakfast. So you'll now be wondering how anyone manages to have serviced accommodation without being full-time in property. This is where serviced accommodation management companies can be worth their weight in gold. Many Airbnb management companies can manage your Airbnb for you, but be warned, do your research as they're not all as good as each other. These companies take care of all the bookings, all the cleaning and the bed linen, and can be around 24 hours a day to deal with any guest issues. This service, of course, comes with a price, but for many Airbnb landlords, this is an essential cost for running the property as serviced accommodation. Most Airbnb management companies will charge you a percentage of a night stay to run your Airbnb for you. This is where the number crunching comes in, as the numbers need to stack up to ensure running an Airbnb will make sense financially if you decide to take on an Airbnb management company. Claire Halliday of Refreshing Scotland runs a 5-star Airbnb management company. Refreshing Scotland has everything in-house, from their management staff to their cleaning staff. They take care of everything for you and pride themselves in getting 5-star reviews for every Airbnb they manage. Refreshing Scotland is in a class of its own. They provide hotel standard services for their guests and offer bespoke services tailored to each landlord's request. For example, premium quality skin ranges to putting specialist food and drink items in the kitchen for guests arriving. A service like this is truly invaluable, so I've shared a link to Refreshing Scotland website at the end of this blog. Service accommodation can be a fantastic property strategy if it's executed correctly. If you're considering purchasing a property or converting an existing property into serviced accommodation, ensure you've crunched the numbers and have thought about the logistics, as there are a lot of moving parts. You need to ensure that if you have a mortgage on your property, it allows for short-term lets, and that your insurance covers the short-term letting of your property. Be mindful of local council legislation and whether you need to apply for a change of use in the property to allow for short-term lets. We hope you found this article helpful in sharing some of the positives and some of the challenges with service accommodation. If you're interested in investing in property but don't have the time, knowledge or know-how, then click the button below to book a call with me.